Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you to Wild Digital for inviting us on stage. So honored to be here. We have a short amount of time, so I just want to jump in. But before doing that, honored to be joined by Wisnu for a fireside chat. So just wanted to give him opportunity just to do an introduction in terms of Sampingan and the background, and then we can jump into some questions.
Sure. Thanks, Vinnie. Honored to be here with you as well. So yeah, I'm Wisnu, CEO and co-founder of Sampingan. Sampingan is formalizing Indonesia's blue-collar workforce by equipping companies with the tools to source, manage, and retain their frontline workers through just one platform. Today, we serve over 100 enterprise clients with a network of 300,000 blue-collar workers across 80 cities in Indonesia.
Cool. So, the theme today is how to make a successful, pivot during COVID, change a line of business. You guys definitely had with, traditional sort of retail, there's been a major shift. And that's why I think you're uniquely positioned to talk about, how you guys saw some opportunity there. So could you give a little background on kind of where you guys need to shift the business and specifically what that looked like?
Sure, definitely. Before COVID, we were dealing with a lot of providing a lot of workers for more on the sales and on the ground activities, events, and so on. And with the hit of COVID, we actually saw that it's something that's very big and it's impacting our clients quite significantly. And we started seeing early on clients going bankrupt, people losing their jobs, and then people just stopped going out as usual. So the way that our clients were doing business had to change. So that was something that we really had to work with because we need to change the business process as well internally.
And so in terms of leading a company, in terms of that sort of change with the team, how did those conversations go? How do you make sure to instill, steer that ship, instill that confidence, yet, have that conviction on that direction?
Sure, definitely. It was initially very difficult because most of the interaction that we had, most of the activities were done offline, which how we acquire companies is still in Indonesia is very relationship heavy. You still need to meet them, and how we source and manage the workers in some aspects. It's there are some offline activities involved as well. And with all these limitations, we needed to go back and see what kind of activities that we're doing and how we can change that to accommodate the needs that we have today. And we definitely pulled the plug on multiple initiatives and realigned essentially the team to focus on the core offerings that we know we are extremely good at, which is providing blue-collar workers to companies at scale. We stopped all initiatives that didn't align with this vision. We did the basic things, of course, we had the call with you, which was very helpful as well. Cutting down, all marketing expense, making pay cuts, extending terms of payments, protecting our cash flow essentially. And what's most interesting is that before going to reduce the headcount, which we had to do, we needed to be sure that it wouldn't hurt the experience of our stakeholders, in which these are the workers and our clients. So in the first 2 months that COVID hit, the main focus for everyone in the company was to improve the internal processes so that work can be done by less employees and be done remotely. And that was actually the catalyst for change for us. We became super productive, and processes that we never thought we would be able to do remotely, we did it with far more positive results. For example, like customer service. So the common theme there is always having a team of people in one place so that you can monitor. But now we had to do it, remotely, and the result was 30 to 40% improvement in SLA and the number of tickets that they're able to solve, which was amazing. We've also built internal tools that allowed the team to streamline multiple processes, where before COVID, managing hundreds and thousands of workers would require a lot of internal employees to handle. Now almost all these activities are automated, and that was a need, not a want. We needed to do that, and then we realized that the tools that we've built is actually useful for others as well. And then that was then when our company evolved to not only selling tech-enabled services, but to also offer the service, the software itself, the software to source, manage, and retain thousands of workers each day. So that was very interesting. Yeah.
So, kind of that eating your own dog food, saw that opportunity because, interacting with a remote workforce, and especially like a lot of ASEAN markets, Indonesia included, I think, this idea of like face-to-face is, so much of the culture that, so it sounds like you guys have built in-house some, proprietary tools and some now that you're even offering as a service. Yeah. Are there any, just, for ease of use for startups, in the audience, any third-party sort of tools that you guys found really, really helpful for this sort of work from home, remote working shift?
Sure. We definitely use a lot of Google Hangouts because it's more easier, I think, for people to use. The basic tools that we use, we try to document everything now. We make sure that no one misses a meeting, so everyone can essentially see. We try to record everything as well. All the important meetings we try to record so that people can play it back. There's multiple tools like Otter, where you can transcript the audio from each meeting, so which was very helpful as well, so that you don't have to focus on writing all the details, but you can actually use it to engage with the other parties. So these are the main tools that we use.
Okay. And also another one I know that you guys use, because I'm a big fan of, is Notion as well. I'm sure you were using it kind of pre-COVID, but yeah, probably capturing even more now. That's great. I think it's just very helpful for people to hear. And I think then there's a second element thinking about now, the people, clients, the service, and who probably have never really used technology like that for any sort of interviews or calls or knowledge sort of sharing. Anything that you have to share there, like lessons learned, tips, tricks to kind of get people that would be, your internal team is, tech savvy, but for that kind of non-tech savvy, majority of ASEAN still, what it's like shifting them online, what sort of hiccups you might have faced and how you guys have solved that.
Sure. I think we and as you mentioned, we both love Notion, and it's super helpful for everything. And I think the key there when dealing with multiple stakeholders on the client side, it's more on getting used to the system that they already have in place, rather than trying to introduce them a platform where they're not too comfortable in. So it's a short adjustment period, especially with those more from the traditional or conventional companies that we'll be working with. But essentially, there's because of all these limitations, there is that push from these the companies that we work with, in which they also need to adapt, and that kind of push is super helpful for us because these are the things that will stick around even after COVID. Our sales team are way more productive, in which before dealing with meetings in Jakarta, you can only go to 2 or 3 meetings in one day because of traffic. Now we can go to 5 or 6 even. So the productivity aspect and also the client's openness to also adapt is critical here.
Appreciate that. And I'm getting some, actually quite a few questions in, so I do want to make sure we get some time for audience questions. So in terms of touching on a new area, I guess in terms of, this one's around investor confidence. So, your existing investors, any potential new investors, what, in your opinion, is some vital moves that any startup should be making to reinforce investor confidence in terms of the existing business, or even in this case, shifts of the business?
Right. Yeah, I think one is it's always good to have people on your back, supporting, like you guys definitely, which was very, very helpful. And for me, it's very comforting because then we can really focus on the business. Before it was on focusing on growth, and now it's more on how can we grow sustainably. And by growing sustainably, we've focused on improving processes, internal processes, and adapting that to the needs of the clients and the workers as well. And these things are actually what made what allowed us to increase the moat itself. Because these kinds of processes, we always, before COVID, we would not prioritize because we want to prioritize on growth. But because of this, we're creating the right infrastructure for even more massive growth. And with the right infrastructure, we're able to grow at a lower cost as well. We've been able to continue to grow even now with COVID, and we've been able to grow by even reducing our monthly burn by 60%. Yeah, and I think focusing on the business, focusing on improving aspects in that business is key.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You're talking about, cutting that monthly burn and by 60% is huge. And I'm saying unit economics, even if you don't have growth in this time period, if you can show much stronger unit economics, that story is, investors would love to hear that kind of like post-COVID. We actually got a few more questions here related to investors. So maybe I'll pick one more of them. This one I find interesting. Wanted to ask Wisnu that, what do you think investors on the other side need to be aware about in some of the current time, and any sort of procedures, questions, things to be asked to better understand businesses in the current environment?
I think now what's critical, at least for us founders, is managing the team's morale. And that translates to a lot on the output of the business itself. I think these are things that we seldom we sort of forget. Especially the team's morale means we had to do pay cuts. They start to they work with a good number of friends now, and they have to see the friends leaving. While at the same time, we expect them to do more and to take to continue to grow as well, grow the business as well as take more responsibility. And with COVID, we're also eliminating the need of them to interact with one another, which is key, especially for younger employees. So I think that aspect is very important, because if we don't really focus on the people who are helping us to build the product, then they would eventually burn out and leave the company, or come out with bad performance.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, as an investor, I always say this, it comes down to the people. We're not investing in ideas, we're investing in people, and great people will take a company in many different directions. So that's solid. And I think that'd actually be a good segue. Now there's a few questions that have come in. We have a dozen questions around culture. So you're talking about, keeping people motivated. So somebody specifically added about, like, how do you create value for your employees in a crisis like this? Is there anything that you guys, so some of it's a motivation. Is there anything that you guys have done that's something new in terms of creating more value for your employees?
So value, especially now, it's difficult to improve in terms of value, like giving them additional salary, for example, taking them to that next level. But
maybe
value go ahead, Vin.
I was just saying, maybe not non-financial. Anything that you guys are doing to make the experience kind of better for folks?
Sure. Essentially, we allow each team to set their own time, essentially time of work, and we keep track on the output, not on the entire process itself. So we'd have some teams that would be active more in the morning, some in the night, and we adjust that to try to accommodate everyone's best practices. That's one. Second is in the tools itself. So it is very difficult, especially in the first phases, for people who are, living quite in areas or in their homes that doesn't have quite good internet access. So by providing the right tools and making sure that essentially they can work at the level that we expect them to be is was the first thing that we did once COVID hit. We made sure that their infrastructure in each of their homes is good enough. Yeah.
That's solid. And going back to, I think we would take it for advantage in Singapore, in terms of bandwidth, but you mentioned like video recordings. Yeah, like, just that bandwidth and what in real time interaction might be hard, but the ability to like download that after, these are secondary effects that would help that. So being that we have a few minutes left, so few questions then around just, being a CEO, navigating, making changes. So I guess first would be, for any startups that do need to undergo a pivot, that their line of business has been, radically altered under this crisis. Any advice that you would, want to share with other CEOs?
Sure. I think the most important thing is to focus on providing value for the stakeholders, and to all stakeholders, and managing these aspects well, because we cannot just focus on one or the other. If we focus on one, then it's very difficult to regain the trust of another. So managing this would be key. And for this, I would say in terms of if we had to prioritize, number one is employees, because then it translates to everything else. It helps us to manage the stakeholders for the supply, demand, and also to our investors as well. Yeah.
We did. So looking back, anything now that you wish you would have known 3 months ago, even 6 months ago, anything you would have done differently if you could give advice to yourself?
I would have acted more quickly. I would have acted more quickly. I think an extra 2-3 weeks would really help. But we cannot foresee the impact of COVID, and we're just trying to make sure that we're prepared for the outcome. Yeah.
That's an interesting point I want to dive into, being that sometimes we invest in entrepreneurs that have a failed startup behind them. And as somebody who's personally gone through it, I look at it as the ability for you to recognize when to make a really difficult decision to change or something. You get better at that with experience. And so now that you've done it, you're kind of saying, hey, looking back. So any sort of things that would be now signals that you like to understand how quickly to move or how severe something is, any sort of signals that looking back, you would say, hey, this would be good to pay attention to for the next time.
Right. Sure.
10 years later.
Sure. I think the signals is so sometimes we try to overlook data. We tend to overlook the data just in front of us, and we try to stick with the path or the essentially the mission that we are on. And sometimes tending to overlook the data means that we are still clouded with this vision of something that is not may not be the right approach, and that would be the signal is, I think the signal is always right in front of us. It's just a matter of whether or not we want to see that signals.
Okay. Yeah, with that vision, couldn't agree more. Vina, we're wrapped up the time. I made a little tag word of words you were using a lot, and I think it's really powerful. Value, stakeholders, employees. These are phrases that you kept saying in a lot of your answers, and so it just shows how that important that is. So with that, Wisnu, really want to thank you for your time and thank Wild Digital for hosting us.
Thank you, Vinnie. Thank you, all teachers. Bye-bye.